share here, and it is time. Thank you everybody for joining us for the Austin Forum event tonight. I'm Jay Boisseau. I'm the Executive Director and Founder, and I'm here with my partner.
Hello, I'm Jessica Sager, the Managing Director, and Jay's sidekick.
And all right, we're already having our first tech difficulty of the night. There we go.
Fantastic. So welcome to the Austin Forum and on Technology and Society on Zoom. Just like the rest of the world, right after our March event, it was so good that they canceled South by and they canceled in-person greetings. So we have been on Zoom ever since. So we really, really appreciate, the foundation of the Austin Forum on Technology and Society is building community. So thank you for being a part of our community.
We're really pleased tonight to present this event. The Austin Forum changes its topics every month to make sure that Austinites, both novice and expert, can learn new things every month. We try to pick the major technology trends, both emerging and pervasive, but we always adjust the programming in real time based on really emerging things. So if you were with us in April, we adjusted the programming to account for COVID with 3 events. We started going to 2 per month once we went online. With the recent challenges and issues and problems, and most importantly, awareness of the need to be better. We had our last event on social injustice. And this event is on a related event to that on achieving diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech. Now, if you were at the last event, this one will be different. The last one was about how technology, data, and analytics can help shine a light on these injustices and discrimination and negative practices that hurt and even kill people. Tonight's is a much more forward-looking talk about, well, we will share some stats that aren't wonderful stats, but about the need and the opportunity and the benefits for achieving diversity, equity, and inclusion in tech. We're very happy to have Michael Ward Jr. join us again. He is our anchor, our constant across these 2 events, and a member of the Austin Forum Advisory Board. We're pleased this event to have joining Michael, Elizabeth Quintanilla of Marketing Gunslingers, Leo Ramirez of NCAST, who has presented at the Austin Forum before, and Matt Stevenson of Code to College. So thank you guys very much for joining us tonight.
And we are here because we have an amazing group of annual partners and sponsors that make this possible, ranging from small startups to big tech companies and consultants and everybody in between. And we're really, really thankful for our partners because they are the ones who make the Austin Forum on Technology and Society possible. And we are Austin's free, largest, longest running tech meetup. And it is because of this, with the support of our partners, it makes it possible.
Yeah, and many of those partners contribute somebody to our advisory board. So I think I've said this before, and I will probably say it every month, we have the best advisory board of any technology organization in town. It just keeps getting better and better, and it's because we have leaders from those companies that care so much about the impact of technology on people in society and the role of these technologies in the Austin ecosystem and what can be done here and then shared with the rest of the world. So much thanks to our great advisory board for coming up with or helping us come up with the programming, and also making a lot of the introductions to some of the key experts and leaders that contribute to the programming.
So our goal is to bring together leaders, thinkers, builders, creators, learners, doers to connect, collaborate, and contribute. This is about expert presentations to inform and inspire you to take action and collaborate and do something in the world. So if you got here at 6, you saw I was just connecting, people getting to know each other via chat, people getting to know the speakers a bit. From 6:15 to 7:30, we have our presentation. In the real world, pre-COVID, we would meet afterwards at Trifecta for extended networking, but instead we have a really fun extended networking and extended Q&A discussion, where even if you're just signed on as a guest, we'll bring you up as a panelist, get to dialogue with our speakers, which has always been a really insightful time. So thanks. So I want to hear from everybody. So if right in the webinar chat where you've introduced yourself, said hi, chatted with Camellia and all the rest of them, think about this. What is important to you about this conversation tonight? 121 people decided to join us tonight, and we're incredibly thankful. So write in the chat webinar, and the chat feature right now, what is important to you about this conversation? Why are you here? And then press send. Ooh, Ashley Phillips is here. I'm excited. I'm looking forward to all the answers of what has you be here. To help families low income, United Way, that this conversation is happening, that it's important. I absolutely agree. We've got to have these conversations and we've got to show up for them as well. And we got to be strong for our community. So keep writing and keep sharing what is important to you. We really want to know what is important to this. So finding ways to inspire and create support systems for people who are frequently marginalized. Absolutely, Jen. And we'll have a lot of great ideas and great advice from our panelists tonight. And I love that in action items, that's something that we're definitely focusing on tonight. So this is great.
Yeah, for those of you who didn't know our opening comments, we're really pleased that we're going to be sharing with you a downloadable document tonight of easy, quick, but important steps that you can take to learn more and do more to help out on this cause. This is going to be a great Zoom event tonight, but it's going to go beyond tonight, especially with your help in downloading that document and taking some steps. And speaking of downloads, we hope you will also download and listen to some of our podcasts. We have 2 seasons on there, and we are planning the 3rd season right now. I think we have pretty much finished our set of speakers and topics for it, although if you've got a suggestion, please put it in the chat window. So we should probably start recording that next week and release the episodes over the course of the next several weeks. We also have a blog on Medium. We have 3 or 4 that are about to go up and a number of others that people have promised to write. So we are planning on accelerating the blog posts as well. If you'd like to contribute to the blog posts in particular, please let us know. We are looking to share as much expertise as possible. Even with doubling up on Zoom, the number of events per month, we still can only get to 20 to 24 events per year. It's the blog and the podcasts that enable us to share even more information. So let us know what you want to hear about.
Absolutely. And we're online, like I said earlier. Join us. We have our own Austin Forum Slack workspace, austinforum.org/Slack. Continue the conversation, get to know people. We just added a opportunities channel too, because we have such a rich network of entrepreneurs, business owners, people representing companies, all sorts of things to share about opportunities people have for collaboration, for work, for projects, etc. You can also share about your events, anything that's relevant to tech and society. And if you're interested in moderating a channel on our Slack workspace, like you would like to help shepherd and steward a conversation, please let me know by emailing us at info@austinforum.org.
Also help us share the goodness with everyone, please. We have been doing this for 14 years and growing and reaching more people. We do this on a shoestring budget because we always want to make everything free for everyone. You guys can help us with that. And one of the ways you can help us with that is by sharing the goodness. And actually, this hashtag is the wrong hashtag on this slide. I see I missed one place. This should be Diversity AF tonight. So I'm not going to fix it in real time, but it's in the bottom right corner. It's hashtag Diversity AF. And please tag the Austin Forum also if you tweet about it. If you have questions for the speakers within this community, use the Q&A button in the control panel for Zoom at the bottom of the screen. So use the chat for everything else in Zoom, but use the Q&A button to submit questions that you want our moderators to consider for asking at the end of the event.
And please, for example, Jen, you just put a great question about wanting suggestions on micro and not micro invitations and welcoming tactics. Please make sure you put that in the Q&A because I don't want that to get to disappear in the chat. So please if you want to make sure the speakers get to it, please put it in our Q&A. We really want to make sure everybody gets everything answered as much as possible. And now our featured presentation. Please ask questions via Zoom Q&A and please be respectful of our speakers and audience. Share key points via Twitter using our hashtag and handle DiversityAF at Austin Forum. And as always, learn, think, and enjoy.
And with that, we'd like to introduce the speakers, Michael Ward Jr. of the Austin Urban Technology Movement, Elizabeth Quintanilla of Marketing Gunslingers, Leo Ramirez of NCAST, and Matt Stevenson of Code to College. I'm very pleased to introduce the first, and they're going to present in this order. Very pleased to introduce the first speaker, Michael Ward Jr., and each speaker will introduce the subsequent one. So Michael, with that, let's turn it over to you. I will stop my screen share so that you can share. Michael, you're on mute.
Yep, I saw that. Appreciate it. All right. Can everyone see my screen?
Yes.
Perfect. So thank you so much for the opportunity to speak at the Austin Forum. As Jay and Jessica stated, my name is Michael Wood Jr., and I'm also on the advisory board for the Austin Forum. But outside of that, I am the president and CEO of AUTM, which is Austin Urban Technology Movement. And today I'm going to take about 10 to 12 minutes just to kind of set the stage around why it's important to achieve diversity, equity, inclusion inside the tech space, and really just make sure we're on the same page about where are we right now and what are some things that are happening right now and can be done for the future. So not too much about me. I'll make this quick, but I'm a social entrepreneur. I focus on anything around the digital divide, around workforce development and technology, or community development inside underserved communities. So as I said, president and CEO of AUTM. I'm also part of the greater Austin STEM ecosystem, Cultural Keys ambassador. I'm on the Austin Forum. Recently an NLC 2020 fellow, which is New Leaders Council. They produce progressive leaders across the state of Texas and nationally. I'm also an economic empowerment leader for Greater Mount Zion Baptist Church and a podcaster for Culture Crawl ATX. Everything is connected, and you'll see that throughout my presentation about why I wear many different hats, but everything's really about moving our community, moving our society closer towards equity for all. So let's kind of set the stage for diversity in tech. So this is a breakdown showing from 2017 where diversity is right now when we look at certain companies. So when you break down, looking at Amazon, looking at Dell, Uber, Groupon, etc., you can see where they are when we look at the gender breakdown between male and female, but then we also look at their ethnicity. So at the top section there, the top row, you see US population. That shows where the population is versus where the actual breakdown is within specific companies. So I want to focus on ethnicity. So you can look at Asian, Latinos, Black. They're 6, 18, and 13% respectively. However, when you look at that ethnicity on a US population versus the actual companies, you can see that for the most part, the outlier is Asians are definitely outpacing the US population as far as percentages. But when you look at Latinos and Black, majority of these companies have less than the nation percentages. Mind you, I am not one to just stop at the US population saying, you know, we have 10% Black, or in this specific situation, if we have 13% Black, we should have 13% Black employees. I say that should at least be the floor. It should not be the ceiling. It should be a place where you aim, but then you want to surpass. However, just based on this, we have a long way to go because Latinos and Blacks are once again not as much represented inside the tech industry. When we look at the wage equity in tech, well, we see white men start at $1. But then when you look at Asian men, it drops down to about 96 cents. You look at Latino men, 92 cents. Then you have white women and 90 cents. But then you look at Black men, 88 cents, and women just kind of tears down. So we see there's a lack of equity within inside the tech space. So this goes down into the page gap, which these data points aren't updated. So I do believe as of 2020, Black women actually make 62 cents compared to white men. I could be wrong on that, so please don't quote me, but I do believe it is lower than what it is right now. But if this is showing that we have a wage equity issue, and in addition to that, we also have a lack of representation based off of the US population inside the tech industry, we have a long way to go to truly achieve diversity, which then allows us to achieve equity and it allows us to achieve inclusion. So why does this matter? And now I'm gonna kind of focus on Texas for a little bit since, you know, we're here in Austin and we're doing this from Texas. When we look at the trends from 2000 to 2017, we see that the overall target demographics for Texas is changing. Back in 2000, majority of the population was non-Hispanic white. That's 2000, where they had 53%. When you look at 2010, non-Hispanic whites dropped down to 45%. When you look at 2017, non-Hispanic whites dropped down to 42%. So based on this trend, we are moving towards a society here in Texas where now the majority of the population will no longer be non-white. However, majority of the demographics in technology right now are white. So if we are moving one way, for Texas, and we're moving that way as a nation, well, what are we doing to ensure that we are actually investing in a majority of the population to ensure that we are moving individuals in the right direction and making sure they have the tools and the skills needed to be successful in today's economy? And then we look at, okay, well, what does the Texas household broadband availability look like? And the reason why I put this in here is because if you do not have access to the internet or you don't have access to technology, well, you're not even thinking about working in technology. You're not thinking of becoming a software engineer or being a web developer or even working in sales. Now, I got my start working at Oracle doing software enterprise sales, but I didn't even think about technology until a recruiter recruited me when I was a senior graduating from the University of North Carolina. So now, as you look at just the lay of the land for Texas right now, roughly 88% of the overall state has download speeds of 100 up and 10 down. The reason why I'm focusing on 100 up is because everyone is home right now because of COVID, because of social distancing. So we don't have just one device on internet. Now you have two, now you have three, maybe even four. So the more devices we have on our home internet or on our home connectivity, we need stronger signal. We need stronger quality of strength in order to ensure that people are connected, whether that's your child doing online learning or it's your parent or an adult trying to work remotely, trying to connect into a VPN. So when we look at internet connectivity, it's very important that individuals actually have the support that they need to continue to move in this direction in the 21st century. Now we're going to focus on Austin. So here in Austin, these are the top 10 advertised jobs inside this space. And I'm focusing on Austin because Austin's a growing tech hub. We're a growing entrepreneurial hub. We're Austin right now. And if you just look at these data points, 21% of these jobs in the top 10 are STEM related, computer and mathematics. I also highlighted management, sales, and office administration because these are also jobs that can be done inside the tech industry. So if you combine the STEM related jobs and the other non-technical jobs that are still inside the tech space, majority of these jobs, which is more than 50%, are inside this industry. So what are we doing to ensure that we are moving individuals in this direction or providing opportunities for them to get plugged in to then be in science, then be in mathematics, be in management, right? Having all these jobs inside the tech space. Okay, well, what about the top 25 skills in demand? Well, this is once again looking at Austin. You got customer service and sales and project management. Once again, these are jobs that can be done inside the tech industry, which is why I highlighted them. But look at software development, look at SQL, look at Java, look at Python, software engineering. The top 25 skills that are in demand here in Austin are tech related. And if Austin's a growing city and there's other growing cities across the US, technology is definitely changing and reshaping our ecosystem. But if majority of our population, or at least some members of our population, don't have access to the internet, don't have access to the digital skills, well, how are we preparing them for the jobs of tomorrow? How are we preparing them for the jobs of the future when we realize that they don't have the funding, they don't have the education, they don't have the resources that are necessary to actually make that pivot? Now I want to show the top 10 job postings and wages. So this is showing majority of these jobs are tech. The only one that is less than 50,000 from a median wage is someone working in computer user support. But if you're looking at a web developer, information security, computer systems, IT, majority of these jobs, these individuals are making over $50,000 per year. So if you're asking yourself, how do we achieve diversity, equity, inclusion in tech? Number one, we need to increase the number of individuals that are non-white inside this space. The moment we do that, we are lifting individuals up from where they currently are from an income level to a whole nother category, a whole nother level they've never even experienced before. And once we do that, well, now we wouldn't have to have conversations about whether or not these individuals can be self-sustaining, whether or not these individuals can afford internet access. It all comes down to your income. And if we are not training individuals for these jobs, then these jobs are going to go vacant. And then that is just going to be a detriment to our economy. Because in the manufacturing tech industry alone, between now and 2028, we're going to have over 2 million jobs that are available. Those 2 million jobs bring about, and don't quote me on this, I believe it's $1.2 billion in our economy, just from the manufacturing tech industry. We're not talking about any other aspects of the tech industry, just manufacturing, but that's one issue. This is a recurring issue across the tech space where we do not have enough skilled laborers, a skilled talent to meet these demands. So what does AUTM do? I kind of set the stage. I talked about some of the challenges. I talked about broadband. I talked about the internet. I talked about opportunities for individuals to get inside the tech industry because of the demand and where Austin is going as a growing city and where the United States is going as a global economy. But from our perspective, we focus directly on connecting the Black and Hispanic community with the tech industry. Our vision is to increase representation of the global majority inside the tech space while also leading diversity, equity, and inclusion practices in the city of Austin. So what does that mean? That means, number one, we are removing the barriers that prevent individuals from getting inside the industry. And a lot of those barriers come down to exposure or lack of exposure, lack of understanding, and lack of adoption. So what do? We have programs. Our programs all around exposure. We have Day in a Life, where we bring students and adults. This was pre-COVID, so right now we're still finalizing how we're going to do it moving forward. But overall, the Day in a Life brings students to see what it's like to work at various tech companies. They get to job shadow. They get to see what it's like to be inside this environment. Then we have Autumn Horizons. Autumn Horizons, we're bringing Black and Hispanic tech professionals to share their career journey with the students. I don't remember who said inside the chat, but someone mentioned, we need to expose individuals to these opportunities because they literally do not know what they don't know. So we need to break down those barriers and make it very easy for our students, the younger generation, to see themselves inside the industry. But we also need to do it for the older generation that's kind of, don't have the skill sets today, but they want to make that pivot. They want to make that change. In the middle, we have workforce development. We have our job board, where right now we have over 200 jobs in our job board, majority of which could be done remotely. We have internships, we have boot camps, we have apprenticeships, all about creating options, because not everyone in our society is going down the same challenges or has the same opportunities. So let's break them down. Let's diversify. Let's provide opportunities so it doesn't matter who that user is or who that candidate is. They have exactly what they need to be successful. And then we also have events. We have our corporate curated events where we focus on technology trends or diversity, equity, and inclusion trends within the tech space. And then last but not least, we have Rethink Austin. And Rethink Austin is rethinking the trajectory of the city of Austin. Because if we continue doing exactly what we've been doing for the past 400 years, we'll just continue to divide ourselves between the have and have-nots, between the educated, uneducated, between the experienced, unexperienced, between the whites and non-whites, and time out. I don't want to continue that trend. So Rethink Austin brings together a group of individuals to focus on technology, entrepreneurship, diversity, equity, inclusion, and community impact. That is what Austin cares about, and that's what other growing cities like Austin care about, because we are in the 21st century, and that's the direction that we're moving in. We also have our online application. I believe that education should be free, and that is one of the equalizers in our economy. And I'm actually going to correct myself. Not education, learning should be free. I believe that we have kind of confused the learning versus education and created a lot of parameters around it. So let's make it very simple. I believe anyone who would like to learn a skill, it should be done free because we have the internet. So we have our online curriculum. It's called AUTM Learn. You can find it on our website. And we're pushing individuals in order to really have access to that, to get training in computer science, in cybersecurity, job skills, soft skills, etc. You can sign up for our newsletter. So if you do have your phone, feel free to take a photo of that, and you could get plugged into our newsletter we have on a weekly basis, showing the work that we're doing, but also what members of our community is doing that makes sense for you to know about. And then last but not least, what else are we doing? So we have our petition right now called our Texas Technology for All petition. I did put a link inside the chat, and I'll do it again once I'm done here. But our petition is demanding Governor Abbott, which is the governor of Texas, for those that don't know, to increase internet access, technology devices, and for those that are underserved, low income, and underrepresented, but also to provide an upskilling opportunities for those same communities to get inside the tech industry. You know, internet and technology is step one. We got to make sure they know how to use it. We got to make sure they have the skills to then start making this career pathway so we can remove people from where they currently are and make them become self-sustaining. And I think that is one of the most important pieces of becoming self-sustaining. And we could do that by giving people the skills and the opportunities to make this transition and this pivot inside the tech industry. That's it on my side. I really do enjoy talking about diversity, equity, inclusion, and digital equity and workforce development in this space, because these issues have been here for a very long time. However, because of COVID, because of a lot of focus on systematic racism and economic justices, you know, the players that have the power and have the influence are starting to take notice. We do have a long way to go, so please don't think that we're done. But with your help, we can make this happen. So I appreciate the time, and please feel free to join the movement. You can follow us on social media, and I know I'll talk more throughout the presentation. So now we'll stop the screen share, and I will hand it off to Elizabeth.
Thank you, Michael. So I'm here as Elizabeth Quintanilla. So instead of representing an organization or somebody else, I want to take a time out and pull maybe a Mr. Rogers moment here and share a story. So when I think of Mr. Rogers, what do you think about the show? He actually talks about being a good neighbor, but there are two fundamental shows that were very pivotal in my childhood. And I just want to explain a couple of things to you guys. I'm coming here as an immigrant to the United States. So I actually was not born here, and my parents immigrated here. And so while I was gone through most of my education here into a STEM field and then later an MBA, I can honestly say that my mom did not speak English, and I had to overcome a lot of other barriers, while my father was overly educated, being a doctor. So one of those core points when I was growing up, and I saw it in the chat, when you have a mentor, to remember to always be lifting someone up. And that was something that was there, was pivotal as a childhood. And we were always doing that in terms of community service and bringing people up. And that's been a core value throughout. So not only doing this volunteer work is highly critical and important, and not whether you choose to serve with Michael organizations. And I also saw some other MP questions, is there opportunities for people in their 40s? And the answer is yes, they do have it, because one of the things that's out there is if you have the drive, you can also go in and get these skills and pivot and change. There are a lot of other programs out there that are there in workforce training. However, you have to go out and take the initiative. But one of the things that we're talking about is the systemic thing here. So when we're talking about systemic things is when you're volunteering and some of these other low class, lower income neighborhoods, what you don't realize is the access to the internet is so critical and device sharing is so critical that what people are doing for homework is sharing an iPad among families around a table at McDonald's for access to the internet. Michael is shaking his head, but you know what I'm saying is true. Like, I'm there volunteering because I had an extra iPad working with kids to help them with homework. And it could be something as simple as that for my call to the tech companies and the people in tech. If you want to change some of the things, and I want to change that. But basically, come here, volunteer. Communities and schools need also volunteer, a lot of other these places, because what I felt, the critical moments coming in, I'm hearing this chat and it's like, yeah, there was 5 kids sharing an iPad in our green space last night. I'm going to record that because I've seen that around me giving volunteering around a McDonald's for free Wi-Fi. And we all know McDonald's is not the healthiest food, so we'll talk about food and nutrition. The other parts about it is like when we change the systemic issue that's going in is like, how do we change this? So access to the education, access to learning. but it's also access to heroes. Because you realize, growing up in Corpus Christi, I was lucky because I realized one of the things that kept me from wanting to date boys in school earlier on was I wanted to be a Blue Angel. And Blue Angels, you got to get a college degree. So I knew early on in like elementary, middle school, high school, that if I was going to be a Blue Angel, I got to finish school. But the other thing is what you don't realize, and I'm going to, pardon if I steal your thunder, but Michael, but one of the most pivotal heroes that I found out later in life is actually Martin Luther King. Because how many of you guys raise your hand in the chat or mention if you're a Star Trek fan? Martin Luther King saved Star Trek. What you don't realize is that the actress was the actress, Michelle Nichols, was going to actually leave after the first season. And it was Martin Luther King that begged her to stay, because that was the only show that Martin Luther King would allow his kids to watch on TV. Because if you realize that, it was like what Gene Roddenberry did for that era was actually create an environment on a spaceship where people of all nationalities, and in fact, actually an inclusive galaxy, if you include all the aliens who served on the Starship Enterprise, to come work together and kick ass. But she was an example of equality on the television. She was beautiful, intelligent, commanding, and had a very real role on a team that could have been done by anyone. And it was good. And it was so pivotal that I don't know about you, but I actually grew up with Star Trek Next Generation, so I'm kind of dating myself. But here, if you actually, yeah, a lot of people had crushes on, yes, yeah. But she was pivotal for Whoopi Goldberg. And Whoopi Goldberg was also on Star Trek. But what she said growing up was, according to the Huffington Post, Goldberg saw the show and said, "Mama, there's a black lady on TV and she ain't no maid." Talk about like what a pivotal hero that was there. And so when you look at it, the other show I was talking about, and I forgot to put in my timer, so my apologies. So somebody also on the chat monitor me if I talk too long, was Mr. Rogers. Because Mr. Rogers was so pivotal because he had the postman have a real job. And that, not only that, he invited him in an area where there was a lot of discrimination. So one of those things is, what do we do as a person of color? And I'm also a female. And for those of you guys who don't realize it, I do have a disability as well, because I had 10 years of Lyme disease. And so that is considered a learning disability while you're on active treatment. So I had to figure out how to be all three. And you realize you've got to be like the duck. You remain calm on the surface, but paddle like crazy underneath. Because we have our challenges, we have our challenges and we can kick ass by being focused. Because what you realize, the key to sometimes winning is just narrowing down what the goal is and staying focused on this. Because one of the other things is, we all know as the amount of investment has gone down over the years for VCs from basically, I think we're at this lowest level since 2013. But according to this article that I read from San Antonio, a startup founder was like, basically women founders are only getting 2.7% of the current venture capital investments to start companies. So what are we saying if Whoopi Goldberg tried to get VC funding and she wasn't Whoopi Goldberg? Her chances are even lower. So what the thing is, like with the movement, if you're supporting people and if you're getting them early to give them real heroes, who do we have as heroes? We are the heroes for today and the next generation, so that they're inspired to do more and become more. And why do I consider this really, really important? Well, we also have to change some of our language, because what we don't realize as programmers, because I am a former engineer turned marketer after my MBA, is there's a lot of things. And in Wired.com back in June, you can look this up. It's called Tech Confronts Its Use of Labels of Master and Slave. And it's very common to use terminology like this, but now we're going, why are we using these terms? And so going back in, and we go back in and look at our use of language. So a lot of people who came here through my social media posts, how do I combine tech, diversity, and Buddhism? And I'm actually combining it as a philosophy, is like the core philosophy of what I consider it is, one, are you being truthful, but can you say it in a kind and useful way? The Vikings, if we go back far enough, and if we go back through our genetic ancestry DNA, it goes beyond our history of just diversity in the last 100 years and overcoming. What can we change to move towards a Star Trek and a Gene Roddenberry future? If we are going to go in and travel to worlds where no one has gone before, how can we act together as a humanity and a team to inspire us to achieve some of these goals? And lastly, we do need to address the systems of systemic problems at a core level in the ways we can. So in addition to this, I'm very grateful for what we have in terms of food delivery, especially for the elderly, especially the people who are disabled and can't do this. But what we also have to think about is like, what do we have in terms of, severe food shortages? Because access, when you have to take in a lower income community 2 or 3 public transit buses to go buy groceries and bring them back. This was actually when I was doing a volunteer study in Dallas. There were people talking about taking 2 or 3 buses because South Dallas didn't have enough groceries as stores in their neighborhoods. So what you're going is like, this is adding extra stress. And then what you realize is the people in these communities are also the frontline workers of today. They are the people who are now getting sick from COVID or who have poor nutrition, and they're more likely to get sick and not see a doctor. And more importantly, these are the people who are making maybe $30,000 to $40,000 a year taking care of our elderly in nursing homes, holding 2 jobs, bringing COVID to our families. What do we want? And these are the questions why this conversation is important. I didn't see the chat here, but one of those things is like, so what can we do in the future? Well, I'm just thinking, how can we look at it as a tech industry and create opportunities? Create not only internships for kids, but perhaps these people in transitions. If there's a way to do learning and get a little certificate, absolutely, let's find a way, perhaps in a startup, to have a partner program to bring in. Because we all remember we used to have semiconductors, and the semiconductor hardware engineers weren't qualified for the software development jobs. They had to be retrained. So what are we doing? And these are the questions that I hope Jay brings into the future. And that, Leo, I think I can pass it to you because I'm a very good rambler and a very good storyteller, and I'll save some more stuff for later.
Oh God, so you go from one rambler to another. We're doomed.
It's all right. They get to ask us more questions, and I get to bring in more funny stories. That's
true. Well, thanks for sharing, Elizabeth. And again, my name is Leo Ramirez. I'm the CEO and founder of NCAST here in Austin, Texas. We provide culture and philanthropy solutions for businesses of all sizes. And I think I want to kind of segue into entrepreneurship. And before I actually hit on the slide, Jessica, if you can just turn the slide off, I'm going to tell a quick story about my background, which I think plays nicely into what Elizabeth just talked about. So I grew up in Deep South Texas, a place called the Rio Grande Valley, about 10 minutes or so from Mexico. My mom is Mexican, and my dad was also born in the valley. And we didn't have a whole lot growing up. I grew up in a mobile home. all 17 years that I was, living in South Texas, I was either in an apartment for the first 1.5 years or a mobile home, the remaining, 14 and a half years, 15 and a half years. And I always felt jealous for all of my cousins because they had so much more than I did. I always felt jealous of my friends in school who got to go on trips and go out to eat. My parents taught us at a really early age that it doesn't matter how bad we thought we had it. There were other people in the world that probably had it worse. And we got to see it at least every other week when we go to Mexico and visit my relatives and see people living in dire straits. And they kind of filled us with this passion for helping others and giving back. My dad, being a teacher, also exhibited that trait. He wanted to be a teacher since he was in first grade. And no matter how many people tried to dissuade him over the years to leave teaching and become a lawyer or do something, he decided when he graduated college in '73 that he was going to take the $6,000 a year job to teach versus the $22,000 a year job to do, I forgot what it was. And I jokingly tell him how upset I am because we could have had so much more growing up. But I'm so thankful for the path that we took, because his decision ended up transforming numerous people's lives. I was lucky enough to have gone to Stanford. And my senior year, 4 of us went to Stanford, and that made 23 kids in 9 years that my dad sent to Stanford from his math team. And in growing up, I still have imposter syndrome, if I'm being honest with y'all. Like, no matter who I meet, no matter what I go, no matter what I do, I feel like I don't belong. And when I got accepted to Stanford, I felt I did not belong. There were people ahead of me that I thought were so much better than I was. And why me? Why me? I didn't have examples in my life of people who were managers or people who started companies. There was only so far that I believed I could go. I believed that the highest that I could go was possibly a manager. So why in the world could I ever own a company or become a CEO? That's just out of the realm of possibility. I never had people come talk to us that looked like me, that came from my background, that could tell us, this is how I did it, you can do it too. And so I kind of broke out of my shell a little bit when I was at Stanford, because I was surrounded by such amazing people, but I still didn't feel like I was capable of doing that. And then I got to Austin in '96, and I got to work for a company called Trilogy, which I'm sure many of you on the Zoom call know. And that's when I really started to realize that I could do a lot more than I believed I could. But by that time, one, it was a little late to kind of start saving money and asking my parents, for money to help me start a company if that's what I wanted to do. So I just opted to learn as much as I could through my experience at Trilogy, at Coremetrics after that, at Oracle and Sun Microsystems, to really understand all aspects of business. Before which I actually felt capable of potentially starting something. As luck would have it, one of my best friends from childhood asked me to co-found a nonprofit with him. It was an economic development accelerator for economically distressed regions. And he had started 2 businesses before, and I didn't know what the hell I was doing. So I said, well, I don't know why you're asking me, again, imposter syndrome, but I figured, why not? I'll join in and we'll figure it out. And we did. And we did, decently well. I started another nonprofit after that, and with another childhood friend. And again, we figured it out. But one of the things that really, really held us back was funding. Finding funding as an entrepreneur, whether it's nonprofit or for-profit, was incredibly difficult. We were well networked, but even with our great networks, we were still unable to find the resources we needed to quit our jobs and do these wonderful things full time. And it wasn't that we lacked great ideas. It's just that we just didn't have the right networks. We didn't have the right, none of the right people in the right places. And in a little bit, you'll see some of the statistics for how people of color are impacted by the kind of distribution of financial resources for entrepreneurs. But it was very, very difficult. And the second nonprofit ended up pivoting into this company, Ncast, And one of the reasons that I had to shut it down is that I spent a good 16,000 hours, I calculated, over 6 years working on that organization. And this is, by the way, while I worked full-time at Sun and Oracle. This is, by the way, while I was raising a family and sat on a couple of boards, nonprofit boards. So it was very, very difficult for me to really focus because I didn't have the resources to do this thing full-time. I couldn't find the funding for it. And it wasn't until I pivoted into this for-profit and I was able to get some funding from one of the co-founders of WhatsApp that things started to change for us. But it took, I started this company in 2014, so that was 6 years ago. So for 18 years, between leaving Stanford and where I am today, I have struggled to find my roots and to be able to get the company going. And I wanted to now go into the slides and talk a little bit about what other people of color face. And you'll see that my story resonates. So one of the interesting things that you'll notice, and many of you may not know this, 22% of Americans are self-employed. It's a pretty significant percentage. 1 out of every 5 Americans has their own company or they're contractors. And one of the other interesting statistics is there over the last 11 years, there's been a 34% rise in the number of self-employed Latinos. And what's interesting is across all races, there was a 1% increase overall in self-employment. And so Latinos outpaced that 1% number significantly by 34 times. At the same time, there was a 6% decrease in self-employment among whites. And Black self-employment was about flat over this time period. And Asian self-employment decreased by 5.8%. Another interesting statistic is new minority entrepreneurs have been created at a rate 3.5 times more than white entrepreneurs. So there is an appetite within the minority community to create, to innovate, to create wealth for themselves and their family and their communities. And this is shown in this number. They don't just come here, they're not just born here to take from America in social services. They're here to create, and they're here to help others. Another interesting statistic is 84% of new entrepreneurs that are minorities are motivated by opportunity, not by need. There's this misconception in entrepreneurship that a lot of minorities have to create businesses, have to go into business for themselves because they don't have the skill set. They can't be hired by others. And that's just simply not true with the overwhelming majority of minority entrepreneurs being motivated by opportunity. Next slide, please. Another very sobering statistic, which mirrors what Michael had in his presentation, is among the Fortune 500 CEOs, according to Diversity Inc., only 1% of them are Black, 2% of them are Latino, 2% Asian, and 5% women. So only 10%, some of those are women as well in your mix. So, but in terms of like Black, Latino, and Asian minorities, only 5% of those are Fortune 500 CEOs. And in terms of funding, which I found a lot of difficulty in finding, venture-backed startups, according to Diversity Inc., are 77.1% white, male, Ivy League educated, and based in Silicon Valley. That is where most venture-backed funding goes. And among venture-backed startups, only 1% are Black, 1.8% Latino. Like Michael was showing in terms of the distribution of roles within companies, Asians at 17.1%, vastly outweigh venture, and then 9% are women. Next slide. And so I like this quote from Brittany Davis, who's a director of deal flow at Backstage Capital. Backstage Capital invests in women-owned companies, minority-owned companies, and LGBTQ companies as well. And she said the founders are out there, but most VCs are just not looking. And even when funds do encounter more diverse founders, they often don't see the opportunity because either the founder or their business doesn't fit into the box of what they predict will be successful. And so I want to leave you with this thought is, as I think shown in my presentation, there are a significant number of minorities who are starting businesses. They're not doing it because they need to. They're doing it because they see some opportunities and they want to solve some big problems and they want to generate wealth for themselves and their families and their communities. And we need to help them, not just through VC funding, but through traditional funding with banks, with non-traditional funding like through organizations like People Fund, here in Austin, or factoring, and giving people, I think, two big things: resources that they need to start their passion projects. But like I started my talk, is giving children examples of what they can be, so they can start the process much earlier than I sure did. And I'm sure several other people on the call did as well, of, hey, if I'm in 5th grade and I just saw someone that looks like me, that comes from the same background that I did, and they are a CEO, I want to be a CEO. How do I do that? And had I started a lot earlier, I think my trajectory would have been very, very different. And I encourage all of you all in positions of influence to encourage kids, go talk at schools, whenever schools open back up, mentor someone through Big Brothers Big Sisters, and other similar organizations, and try to help kids see that they, like you, can do it, and give them the help that they need to get there. With that, I'll cede to the next presenter. I think Mike. Thank you.
Hi all. That was wonderful, Leo. My name is Matt Stevenson. I'm the CEO and co-founder of Code to College. Speaking of digital access, just had a little bit of a road bump with my connectivity, so I'm glad to be back just in time. Code to College, we are an organization that is based here in the Austin area. We launched 4 years ago, and our mission is to dramatically increase the number of minority and low-income high school students who enter and excel in STEM undergraduate majors and careers. And for those of you unfamiliar with the acronym STEM, it stands for Science, Technology, Engineering, and Mathematics, so technical fields. And what I'm really excited to talk to you about, when Jay was discussing with the other panelists sort of how this transition could go, I was very excited to be last because this is the call to action portion and what can you do. And we've talked a lot tonight about sort of the problem, and I'd like to offer up some of the solution. So Code to College, in our program model, we are a skills-based volunteer organization. And we seek out volunteers from, at this point, about 60 different companies ranging from Indeed, RetailMeNot, VMware, Atlassian, and more, to deliver after-school coding and web development education, professional skills training, everything from resume building to technical and adaptive interview prep. We do STEM industry case competitions to expose students to a variety of careers in technical fields, and ultimately place a good portion of them into paid summer software engineering and software development internships at these leading tech firms. I'd like to share a story with you. There is a young woman who we met 4 years ago. Her name is Casey. And when we met her, she could not afford to pay for the SAT. And if you're far afield from college admissions process, it's $60 for the registration fee for the SAT. And she hadn't taken it simply because she couldn't afford it. She went through our program, attended every after-school session. At that point, we had about 60 sessions in a school or program year. She went to each of our after-school session, or excuse me, each of our monthly workshops at companies like Google and Facebook, where she was designing and delivering a variety of pitches and presentations to senior managers at these companies and really impressing them. And ultimately, she earned an interview with Indeed, and she got the job to be their first high school software engineering intern 4 years ago. She not only did so well that summer that she earned a return offer for the following summer when she would still be a high school student, but she also earned enough money to pay for the SAT, enough money to pay for her admissions deposit at Texas A&M, go Aggies if you're here. And she was also able to purchase a used car so she could travel to and from College Station, where Texas A&M is based. And so this is just one of the initial students that we've impacted, but we've only continued on that trajectory. And while I'm very proud of the track record that we've had, I think that it's a testament to, one, this woman, she's half Black, half Latina. She is from a low-income household, and she's a woman. And if you talk about checking boxes, or if you talk about the groups or demographics that tech companies in particular are looking to source from, she checks all of those boxes. And she lives right here in our backyard, or lived right back here in Austin. And so whenever I hear there's a pipeline problem, whenever I hear these students just may not have the right skill set, or maybe college isn't for everyone, part of me laughs, because it's not funny at all, but it's a joke really, because it's about inequitable access to resources and opportunities. That's the difference. And so when these students get even just a modicum, a scintilla of the access and opportunities that their counterparts get, it is amazing what they do with it. And frankly, Black and brown and low-income students have been doing a lot with less for years. And so that's what makes me so excited about what we do. But the second thing I think that it's a testament to is we all have the resources here. There are so many people who they want to give back. They want to invest in the community, and they think that they have to start a nonprofit to do so, or they have to get a large group together to do so. And I always say, we've got tons of volunteer opportunities for you. We source, at this point, over 100 software engineers and developers who serve as instructors in our program. We train them. We've got the pedagogical expertise on our staff. They're the subject matter experts in engineering, and we train them. And in fact, we started our program year, our 5th program year, this Monday. If you're not technical, we've got opportunities for you as well, because we have folks who help our students build their resumes. We've got other folks who review their resumes. We've got folks who help them with behavioral interview prep. We introduce them to the STAR method of articulating anecdotes so that they're prepared for not only interviews, but also writing drafts or primers for their recommenders for college. And the 70% of these folks are non-technical. And so we've got something for everybody. And whether it's 30 minutes in a year that you could give up, or 60 hours, we've got opportunities for you. And I think that we're just one organization that is leveraging the skills and the desire to serve. And there's so much more that we all can do. So I loved that Leo sort of teed me up. The check is in the mail for that you can help. You can reach out and serve students. It does not take a teaching certification. You all have something to give, and there are a lot of organizations who can use your help. I'll also say that what he mentioned as far as a role model, if you can't see it, you can't be it. And I would urge any of you, if you have had that inkling to serve as a mentor, it takes far less effort than you think. and it will have far more impact than you can imagine. So I just want to say thank you so much for the invitation this evening. I think it's amazing that there are over 100 folks who are tuning in and taking this time to learn more about how they can serve, and I think it's wonderful.
All right, great. Thank you very much, all four of you. Let me pull the screen, the next screen back up. Give me just 1 second here. And I will. All right, we are now moving to the Q&A session. So I want to thank all the speakers for their comments. I'm sorry that we're not live, so we can't have applause. I saw lots of essentially virtual applause in the chat window for many of the things that you all said. I actually should have inserted an applause sound into the soundtrack there, shouldn't I? Just like in the baseball games, they're inserting virtual audiences. Jessica, we need to do that next time. So at this point, I want to introduce my friend, Camelia Falcone. She is going to be the moderator for the Q&A session. We have about 10 minutes of Q&A before Jessica and I close up the meeting, and then we will have another half hour of Q&A. So please stay on if you can. We always try to end the events at 7:30 formally, but we've been doing extended networking, extended Q&A instead of networking. And we want to introduce Amy Ashley to run the second Q&A session. So for the first, please welcome Camelia Falcone. Camelia, take it away.
Yeah, good evening, everybody. Thanks first off to the panelists, amazing job. Just thanks for the story sharing. I know that there was a lot of truth shared and just a great combination of facts that people need to be aware of as they go about their work, but also the personal stories, I think, really made it impactful. First, I wanted to share that we do have a takeaway, and from the questions that I've seen coming in, I can tell that there's a lot of passion in this area, and perhaps this is a takeaway that you will want to share with people that may not share your passion. So just, I'll put some little quotes there for everybody. But what we try to do, there's a lot of new interest in this field, and people are asking, like, what can I do today? How can I be a support today? I want to take action. So we have a handout. Let me see if I'm going to be able to share my screen. We have a handout here that gives some quick actions that people can take, maybe one a day, challenge themselves as a pandemic project to pick something and take an action. And then if you'd like to share it on the Slack channels. So this will be made available as a download. I know that, in some of the questions we talked about the emotional labor of being a BIPOC identifying person, and maybe this is something you want to have available to send out to some of your curious colleagues. So I'm going to leave it there. And then I'm going to go ahead and start the question and answering. So I know that we had a couple come in on the chat. If you do have more, feel free to add them. So the first one I'm going to address to Matt. Sorry to put you right back on the spot. But there was a question about if we knew of any new initiatives amongst tech recruiters to recruit a more diverse workforce. And I figured that because you work so closely with getting your participants in these roles, that you might have insight to that.
So just to be clear, whether I knew of any new initiatives from tech recruiters to hire more diverse candidates?
Yes.
Not like a coordinated effort among several. I will say that we have our own programs within Code to College called the Tech Talent Pipeline Partnership, where our partners have access to our pool of diverse technical talent. Mm-hmm. And we also launched an initiative earlier this summer called Vision 2024, which is our initiative to place 200 Black and Latinx women into STEM roles by the year 2024. But a coordinated effort or even a singular effort, I am not specifically aware of.
Great. Thank you. It definitely a tough question. Any other panelists, do you have awareness of coordinated recruitment efforts from the tech community? And you can shake your head. I can see all of you if it's okay. Okay.
Yeah,
Maybe
I'll
this
chime
is
in
something
for
we need
one
to
second.
collaborate on a infographic to hand out, Matt.
I could chime in for 1 second, Camelia.
Sure, great.
So just overall, very similar to Matt, I would say there's not a coordinated effort across the industry. However, there is definitely an uptick of a focus on working with HBCUs, working for Hispanic serving institutions as well. There's definitely been a focus around given the state that we're in right now in our society. But the other piece that I would say is that there are several groups that are looking to really galvanize the tech employers and organizations that are focusing on workforce development to ensure that we're not being redundant and that we're actually working smarter, not harder. I'm in a lot of those conversations to really pull in those individuals because if you're focusing on workforce development or digital equity in some way, shape, or form, well, all those organizations and employers should be working together to have a more targeted approach. So that's kind of my comments on that.
Yeah. Great, thank you. And since you're already off mute, Michael, there was a question directed to you. So when you were talking about the different programs that Autumn was working on, there is a question about if there are programs for older adults, so in the 40 or 50 age range that might not get rehired after the economic downturn. So is your group or other groups you're aware of focusing on that from an age perspective?
Yes, so from an Autumn standpoint, we are K through adulthood. So it does not matter who you are, it does not matter how much experience you have. We want to make sure you're plugged into the tech community. So if that means you're looking for a job, great. Well, let's see what skills you have. Let's develop those skills and make that connectedness. So wherever the barriers or the challenge, we do provide those opportunities. Right now, we're launching 4 different cohorts. One is in CPT, which is Certified Production Technician. That's in the manufacturing space. We have drone technician. That's those individuals who would like to fly or drive drone machines. Then we also have software engineering, and last but not least, sales and entrepreneurship. So from an Autumn standpoint, the question is, where do you fall in Autumn? And depending on where you fall, that's how we connect and work with you.
Okay, great. Thank you, Michael. And there is a request if the panelists can go ahead and drop their contact information or LinkedIn link in the comments. I know that Jay and Jessica will work on getting that information out, but just while we have a ready audience, if you want to do that now, if you haven't already, that would be great. Next, I'm going to address a question to Elizabeth and see if others want to chime in. There were a couple questions around the idea of being included in these spaces that may not be places where you're as represented as others. And so just if there's any tips that you might share about either being included, how to create a support system, and maybe avoiding some of those labels that we're probably familiar with that come up, like being angry or passionate, I think is another one.
I'll go ahead and say it. No, we'll go ahead and say it. I was a kid, and when they found out I was an immigrant, they called me wetback. I mean, kids are mean. We all know that there are kids that are mean, but I'm going, guess what? If there's a mean kid, it's probably the adult that can be mean. So you've got to learn how to let things go and roll off your back, because I'm one of those people, I think Leo has known me for what, 10 years, and has probably seen me blow up maybe twice in the 10 years when I got really passionate about something. So it's like I try to have a long fuse. I try to let
Buddhist.
Well, no, it's like, thank God my brother goes to the Buddhist temple and became a Buddhist. That's how I learned everything. I'm still a Christian. But you're going, it's like, I love the philosophy, because it's like, you have to remember kindness first, truthfulness first, kindness second, actually is the best way to describe it. Because you're going, it's like, you know what, I'm here legally. I came here legally, and I'm basically like going, it's like, And at the end of the day, sometimes your mentors don't look like you. And I was popping back, and I'm just going to go ahead and say, pick some good mentors, even if you never meet them. I love this guy. If I have to do a book plug, come on. Life is really what you make of it. This is a really cool dude who does really cool, awesome stuff and makes things blow up on TV. You know, who wouldn't want to have that job? And in order to do that job, you've got to learn and be geeky. And so when you realize, what is your end goal? I don't want to be the prettiest girl in that dress at 15. I want to go to college. Okay? Let's face it, a good quinceañera party, if you have access and the ability to have one, I'd rather take a car and go to college. And just being able to stand up and say, this is more important to me. You know, if you have to make that choice. And, you know, putting yourself in situations. So sometimes, you know, it was really funny. The coffee at the Four Seasons is basically the same price as the coffee at Starbucks, and maybe a little bit more than the coffee at McDonald's. And where are you going to meet a kick-ass founding mentor who's got VC funding? Okay, fine. I can pay for your coffee at the Four Seasons. It's in my budget to be mentored.
Great. I also shared a couple of things. I was answering some questions and getting clarifications as we were going, and I definitely know that I had some experiences there too, and also referenced some other outside resources that I found comfort in. So definitely just vibing with that answer. So thank you, Elizabeth. I think we have maybe time for one more question. And since I haven't picked on Leo, I'm going to give him the real doozy here.
Oh, geez.
So Leo, what
Can I
are
run now?
on how can tech get serious about diversity? And so while you ponder that, I will also say that there was an observation that we had, we didn't have any representation or any vocal representation from leaders from major tech companies. So I know that many of our panelists have worked at major tech companies and been successful and now are doing different things. But just to say, you know, I feel like so often we have these conversations maybe in silos. And that was also a comment that came up during the discussion. So what things can we do to get people interested beyond our silo?
No, I happen to be very lucky in the places where I worked that there was a focus on diversity and inclusion for, I really felt it over 20 years. Trilogy did it. We didn't really care who you were and where you came from. We just wanted to find smart people that wanted to do some really hard things and make a lot of money and party. So it's what we did. And Coremetrics was the same way, you know, led by Brett Hurt, and then Sun Microsystems and Oracle, being California-based companies, they both exhibited that as well. My sense in Austin is that a lot of companies are doing a decent job, you know, hiring not just for talent, but trying to keep a diverse workforce. I had a really great conversation with a global head of HR for National Instruments late last year about how they really care about bringing in diverse religions, sexual orientations, cultural backgrounds, political affiliations, etc. But at the end of the day, they have to find common ground with who they hire, because it's the common ground that's going to keep them together. So a company has to really think about, what are our core values? Who do we hire that will fit within those core values, at least as much as possible? And then how do we then be intentional about when someone kind of fits those core values, what kind of people do we want to bring in that bring us the diversity to help us expand, to go into the uncomfortable. It's the core values that allow us to have the comfortable conversations with people. I went to Bali, I also have kids, I love dogs, right? Like, that's easy. And that's a great way to get started. But in time, as you build a relationship, you can start venturing into, I'm Jewish, you're Christian, I'm Muslim, you know, I'm Jew, I'm Black, I'm white, I'm Republican, I'm Democrat. And as we delve into the uncomfortable, we have a safe space in the middle where we have the common ground. So I think any business looking to get serious about embracing D&I has to really understand what their core value is, what their culture is, and be intentional about hiring diverse workforces, because that's the thing that's going to help to expand them into new and exciting innovations.
Yeah. And I think that innovation part is really important too. I've been in places on the back end of programming where, you know, we were trying to put out a product, but the programmers didn't have the, you know, kind of worldview to appropriately represent it. So I also think there's an economic incentive that might come in as well. So with that, I'm going to thank everybody for these amazing questions and also for the engagement on the chat and on the Q&A. It's really just great to have people talking throughout. I hope that the panelists will get a chance to review it, because I know it's hard to review when you're speaking as well. But just lots of kudos for all of you and the work that you're doing. So with that, I think I'm handing it over to Amy.
No, not yet. We have our formal close of the meeting now, and then we go into extended Q&A. So don't leave if you don't have to, folks. We do promise to try to end these things around 7:30, but we are staying for extended Q&A to replace the networking breaks that we can't do anymore due to COVID. So are you all seeing this screen? The join us for the future events?
Yes.
Great, thank you. So we hope that you enjoyed tonight a lot. We hope you will stay for the Q&A that we're about to have, a lot more of it with these great speakers. We also hope you'll join us again on September 1st. As I mentioned, we had special programming this month related to a really important current topic and ongoing topic. We resume on September 1st with an annual event, the Tech Startups and Innovation event. We have Gordon Daugherty from Capital Factory, also Josh Baer running the Q&A from Capital Factory for that, Ashley Stroud Phillips from Impact Hub Austin, and a number of speakers who will be presenting at that event. If you've ever wanted to create a tech startup, this is your event. If you already work at a big company, but just wonder what that startup spirit is like and how you may be able to leverage it in your larger company, this event is also for you as well. So we hope you'll join us then. On September 22nd, we're really pleased to bring back Sherry Grainer-Ray. She last spoke for the Austin Forum years ago. You may have been paying attention. The gaming world is blowing up now. Online worlds and virtual worlds are blowing up, in part inspired by us sheltering at home. And she's going to come talk about the present and future of those worlds on September 22nd. We'll get even geekier on October 6th when we talk about smart cities and how to collect all this data and use technology and analytics in positive ways to affect outcomes for human beings and communities and cities. And then further delving into the geekiness, we've got neurotech and brain enhancement on October 20th. That one is still tentative, but we think that's going to get scheduled. And then we go all the way to quantum computing on November 10th with our friend Worley. So please join us for the upcoming events. And Jessica, you want to talk about the Slack workspace again?
I saw some people already asking about how to join Slack. Guess what? You can go to our website and we have a /Slack and click the button that says join the Slack channel. Enter your email address, check your email to confirm invitation, enter your name and click create account. Voila, and you'll be a part of our Slack community. So we would really love for you to be involved. We'll be sharing a lot of the resources here in an email at follow up, but the ongoing conversation, definitely there are opportunities for that on Slack. So please join us there.
Again, we want to thank all of our sponsors from AMD to Valkyrie and everybody in between. We have some global tech giants that are working on their diversity plans. We have some small Austin companies that care about the tech workspace and community here in Austin. So many thanks to our annual partners who make all of this possible.
And we had so many inspiring things shared tonight about how to make a difference through technology. We talked a lot about the digital divide and things like that. We are really passionate about that, and we invite people to donate your devices to Austin Pathways. Catherine Kegro, if anybody is from PACA, or Austin Tracy, I see Austin Pathways. Thanks, Austin Pathways just received some donated devices today. Again, we've heard how important it is, so we will safely pick up, safely get them safely from you, safely refurbished, and safely delivered to residents. So we're really thankful for this partnership with Austin Pathways. But dear community that's on the phone right now, please donate.
And Elizabeth really queued up the need for that well in the story she told. And that is a shocking but true story, how few people have these devices that need them, especially now. So if you've got extra devices, please donate them rather than selling them. There are people that truly need them. If you're waiting to upgrade, because we all know that phone upgrade cycle is next month and the month after, save your old device and donate it to this as well. So we hope you'll donate your old devices to this. Also, as we mentioned, oh, sorry, Jessica, please help us share this on all of our social media. We publish all of our events and new blog posts and new podcasts on this. So please help us spread the word, invite your friends and colleagues.
We would love some blogs suggested on this. So if you have a passion and interest and an ability, please reach out for blogs. And then right before, we're going to have another round of question and answer. It's sort of like this extra special round, because if people are still, the people who really are engaged in the conversation, we'll bring them on as panelists too, to get to dialogue with our amazing panelists. But in the meantime, while you're thinking of your question, I want you guys to put in the chat, what was the most useful thing you learned or heard tonight? So we're really curious. Again, we want these conversations to be impactful. So put in the chat right now, what was the most useful thing you learned or heard tonight? And we're really excited for the people. We have a good group that's still online, so it's going to be a really good conversation afterwards with this extended Q&A. I hope Gerald Garcia is still on. 34% of entrepreneurs are creating out of opportunity, not necessity. Awesome, really important. Fantastic. Wow, I know more things will come in. So Jay's gonna pour us all a whiskey. McDonald's had Wi-Fi.
I'm gonna pour me a whiskey and drink it for all of you.
I found out that Elizabeth and I agree with that, whoever just wrote that. Elizabeth and I are both Trekkies. I'm very thankful for that. The speakers were amazing with their stories. So we will stay right here. And Amy actually will be coming on. If you are on, so get a drink, come back. Amy actually is gonna come on camera, introduce herself. Jay's Whiskey Bar definitely has really good Wi-Fi. Eric, you are right. Oh, Amber, we're really happy to hear that that there are things you can do to help. Really, these are great, great things. I'm glad everybody liked the stories. So for the second part, as we prep, as Jay pours all of us a whiskey, please, if you're still on, we ask you to move your questions to the chat feature. So if you had a question in the Q&A that didn't get answered, ask it again in chat. And the reason why we do that is because that way we can make sure we're engaging in chat, talking with people who are still on the call. So we'd love to hear it. I'm gonna check, I can even peek. Is Gerald? Oh no, Garcia, he had to jump off apparently. Okay, fantastic. Well, we still have, hi Amy. We still have, yes, Matt has to tend crying children. We would understand that too. Jay, what are you drinking tonight?
I'm drinking local tonight. I'm drinking bourbon, but still Austin just released their first batch of bourbon, and it's quite good. So they've been distilling spirits for a couple of years in South Austin, but it takes a while to make bourbon. You have to age the bourbon. So just released, bought a couple of bottles of it. It's good. No steak in them. Barely know anybody there, but it's good.
While we wait, I know people are grabbing their drinks and checking online, but Amy, how about you introduce yourself?
Okay, great. My name is Amy Ashley, and I am employed at Austin Energy. I work on electric vehicles and emerging technologies team, and I am one of the advisory board members here for the Austin Forum. I've really enjoyed serving this board, and this has been really a wonderful culmination to the 3 years that I've spent on this board. This session and the one previous, we're really bringing in diversity and community to technology. As you know, technology just happens to be almost a segregated industry. And so these conversations right now are imperative that we have them. And I'm thrilled to see we had such strong attendance and that we still have a bunch of you with us online. I think I will move over here. I'm going to pull up my chat box so I can grab some of your questions. If you will go ahead and drop some of those in there, we can sort of get the conversation going, and you have a unique opportunity to chat face to face with one of the panelists or all of the panelists for that matter.
I think Ali is the most recent one.
Let's see, I'm not sure if I see that.
I think it's like 3 up above.
I got it,
Jay.
yeah. Okay, yes, this is great. It's a great question. So how do we engage more underrepresented people to help shepherd this process to better inclusion?
Awesome. And we'll let her pop on and see if Ali, if you want to, the panelists can also add answer, but Ali, you can also take yourself off mute and go on screen if you want to chat too with Ainley, and Elizabeth, and Camelia, and Leo, and Jay.
App day. Hi.
Hi.
So I do a lot of work, and one of the executives for a nonprofit called Women Leading Technology. So this is right to the core of everything I've done in my 26-year career in technology, right? And so one of the conversations I'm constantly having is, how do we strike a great balance between supporting and lifting people who are underrepresented as they're looking for their own success, and how do we also get them more involved and engaged, right? I mean, I keep telling people, if you just show up to a class, you're someone's there looks like you who didn't know. And I say that because my whole career was founded on that. I saw a consultant for an ERP system. I worked the night shift at a plant, and I was really good at my job, so they pulled me into that project. I looked at her and I said, I don't know what she does, but I'm going to be her. And then I spent 20 years in management consulting. And that's how it happens. So I appreciate everyone's really openness, but I'm also looking to how do we strike this balance to support people and engage them in helping with the process.
Any of the panelists or moderators, I'm just freeing people to answer the question as they so choose. Any of the panelists or the moderators, please chime in. Get yourself off mute too.
I'm just wondering if there's more ways of collaborating, because you were emphasizing the kids for children, and we need to be the heroes. But in addition, I mean, not all of us have the time to dedicate to be a dedicated big sister, but finding the opportunities between what we are in tech industries or tech related support companies and the nonprofits, working with that so we can actually give back. And maybe we have our own little mini Slack channel inside there where here's the opportunity to volunteer or something like that, because some of us don't even know what's out there.
This could be a good question to ask to at the city level. So I serve on the mayor's corporate engagement council. I have been on that corporate engagement council for, 8 to 10 years. I can't remember when I started, but all of the major tech companies and more small and medium-sized companies are becoming members, and so we represent a wide swath of the Austin business community, and maybe even like getting in front of the CEC at some point, Ali, would be great to hear your story and see ways in which some of the businesses might be able to get involved, with you. But because so much of our community is high tech, I would certainly want to encourage other firms to find other ways of getting involved, because we're constantly throwing around ideas within the CEC of ways in which we can help, the community. And so that could be a resource for you, I guess, to get started.
That's great. I really appreciate that. Yeah.
I private message you, Allie, but I just wanted to say, would you reach out so that maybe, or can I reach out to you, and would love to have a blog of the work that you've done on the Austin Forum, or cross-promote blogs. So.
Because I was going to reach out to you anyway, so you're faster than me. Fantastic.
Awesome. Wonderful. Okay. I'm happy.
Okay, great. Why don't we bring on another participant? We've got
Allie.
Christopher Hastings. Do core value look different?
I'm gonna make.
Oh, hello.
Yes, hold on. Sorry. Sometimes I have a little bit of there. Sometimes it's hard to change people as quickly as I would like to.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
We're
If you're
switching.
still there, Christopher, Jessica's bringing you on.
This is the one about the core values and looking different. Doesn't fit because of their background.
Yes, I asked him how. Yeah.
Do core value look different from a different background? Could we misinterpret someone who has the right values but doesn't fit because of their background?
Christopher, are you on the phone? Are you on? So,
You're on mute, Chris.
yeah.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure how well you can hear me, but I'm on. Yeah, the short question is just, I know that as I look at people that come from very diverse backgrounds from where I may come from, it's easy for me to misinterpret my own sort of cultural familiarity and bias and things like that as people having similar values to what I think I'm really great at, right? If I think I'm good looking in my own fashion, I may be like, man, they're really good looking, just like me, right? But there may be a lot of different things that show up in different ways. And so I'm wondering if you guys have ever encountered good ways to bypass that and being open, particularly if we start screening for values. It seems like an easy thing where we're going to attribute something to someone that may not be true just because they don't look like us.
I can take that one. I guess I'm not sure how you would screen for values. Like values are not something that is objective. They're subjective. Like everyone can interpret them in different ways. I do a lot of work like across cultures and just really had a lot of like conversations. And at the end of the day, everybody has the same values. I mean, for the most part, right? Like we all want to believe that we have these core things that make us who we are. The issue is that we interpret them differently based on our life experiences. So it's our life experiences that shape how we interpret those values. So I guess I'm just not really sure how you would screen based on core values. In my experience, things like fit and these other words that people use are just kind of coded for finding people who like went to the same school as I did, or, will hang out at the same places that I do. And it might not be intentional. Because that's how we're interpreting our values. So I'm not sure if I'm answering the question, but I guess I'm also trying to, I think that I'm also questioning the basis of it as well.
I think there's a distinction that needs to be made between values and culture, because as Camelia just said, the values are kind of a core of who we are. It doesn't matter if you're black, brown, or white. It doesn't matter if you're Muslim or Jewish or Christian. It doesn't matter if you're from India or Mexico or Canada. Certain core values mean the same thing: generosity, connection, valuing family, money, travel. I mean, there's all sorts of things that people consider core values. And so when you think about core values, Camelia is right. The interpretation of those core values is different, but the interpretation is culture. It is not values. Okay, so when you have a certain set of core values and someone joins a company because they feel a connection, part of the deep connection they feel is those core values, but they may also see the embodiment of those core values in a way that really speaks to them, right? So maybe their upbringing, their experience, or their social, exposure means that the value of connection means keggers, right? Like when I came to Austin in '96, we had this thing called Party in the Patio, and every Friday we would go on the roof and we'd have kegs of beer, and the CEO would sometimes come down and say, "Who wants to go to Vegas?" And we jump on a plane and go to Vegas. And so if you were someone that wanted to connect, but did not like drinking and not like going to Vegas, that was a wrong culture for you. It was the right value system, but the wrong culture. So the implementation, the interpretation of those values looks different everywhere you go. So the magic is in finding not just where do my values align, but where does the interpretation of those values align with me too? So I think if you think about it in those terms, they're doing culture fit is hard. I've had to do it throughout my career, and it's something that Trilogy did at the very, very beginning before most high-tech companies would do culture fit. In fact, I think I remember it being like 30–40% of the score you give to a candidate is how much we believe they were a culture fit. But we knew exactly what our values were, and we knew exactly how we interpreted those values, and we knew exactly the kind of people that we wanted to find. And we didn't care what you looked like, we didn't care where you came from. So I mean, that's just another point of view, I guess.
I also just want to add to that, just because what you are at the beginning, because when you're 20 and 25 and you can actually drink like a fish and be okay the next day, that changes over time, and you can't judge poorly the organization that's treated you well. You have to realize that over time, because of this, that, or the other, your own fit in that culture changes. So going in and being an adult enough or being self-aware enough where you need to go ahead and start making changes. So I gave up alcohol 3 years ago, so I could never work for Trilogy in that environment. I just know that I can't. So
what if we flip that question and we look at how it relates to unconscious bias? If we're looking at the organization and how they are putting particular values that don't speak to a wide variety of people. So I think that's part of the issue right now, is really getting organizations, if we want to recruit for more tech or open it up so that more people have opportunities, is getting the leadership to look through that lens. Does anybody have any comments on that?
I think I'm trying to understand the question. So you're saying, like, how does leadership open up to more diverse lifestyles, or?
I'm really talking about like core values of an organization and how to find culture fit. If you're an individual seeking for culture fit, I think it's also, a lot of the people perhaps on the call might be in leadership of an organization. How can they consider the core values that they've put in place that maybe they don't allow for more diversity, if that's the goal that we're trying to achieve?
I guess it's not the core values that are a barrier. It's, I think, back to like what Leo said, is like, it's really the culture that's pervasive at a certain organization. And that culture isn't driven by the professed core values, it's driven by the interpretation of those. So someone can say, you know, we tell the truth always, but it has to be told in a way that's comfortable, and it has to be told in a way that is, you know, accessible to our leadership and in this certain format, in a communication that I prefer. So like, you've taken this core value that is, we tell the truth, and then interpret it through all these, you know, rings, instead of, I can tell you what I think in a moment because I come from a loud culture and that's how we communicate. So, I guess I'm trying to understand too that, like, it's not, fit comes from culture, not from core values.
I think we have just
I agree.
a few more
I'm
minutes.
sorry, Jessica.
Oh yeah, I think we have just a few more minutes. I want to make sure we get to at least one more question. Amy, I think there was one, I think I just messaged you, who, Rebecca Stone, I think, had a good question if you scroll up a bit. But Leo, if you want to switch, and then Amy can see.
Yeah, I just to add to what Camelia said, culture evolves over time, and culture is impacted more greatly by different aspects of a business over time as well. So in the early days of a business, culture is very heavily influenced by your leadership team. So no matter how big you get, most of the culture is going to be driven by leadership, because the leadership team is going to stay pretty fixed, but your team is going to come and go, and it'll take some time before things really settle out and things really start to grow. Then you get to a point of a company like Apple, where their culture is really heavily influenced by their customers, by their team members, and by leadership as well. And how they weight those varies. So, you know, in determining what the overall culture for a business is, you have to take into account who the influencers are. And as those influencers change, so is your culture, and so is the type of people that you're hiring. Someone, Malcolm on the chat, made a comment earlier about hiring more Black CEOs, Black board members, you know, et cetera. And I think that's important, because when you think of the culture being African American, and people in those positions can have a really positive impact on the type of hiring and management culture you have throughout the rest of the organization.
Awesome, thank you. So
Right.
let's
Amy,
bring on.
Amy, we are just about out of time. We have time for
Okay.
maybe one very quick one.
Okay, I think we're going to bring on Rebecca Stone.
All right.
So now a company has a diverse candidate. How do we protect them from essentially being exploited?
And I think I just promoted her. Some people, oh, we might have just lost her too, actually. She was just, some people are signing off as I am looking for them on, oh, there she is. Okay, there she is. Yay, Rebecca made it.
Hi, team. Everyone's my teammate in Austin. So yes, I actually have a very quick 3-line story. So I have seen candidates came into a company, a very big company, who is very diverse, and I have watched the CEO carry them into, like, introduce them into a board meeting and say, look at what we hired, spin them around and say, look at this, literally in a boardroom, exploit the daylights out of them. Everything that they did was like, oh yes, look at this. They were like on this little pedestal of like, here's my little marketing campaign for diversity, like all over the place. So how do we take diverse individuals and protect them from that kind of exploitation? But the diverse individuals they're not puppets for marketing.
I mean, say first and foremost, don't do that.
Just stop.
Just don't.
I mean, just stop. I mean, just like, don't do it. It's a pretty obvious answer. And when you were talking, I don't know why I was thinking of, I hired this wasn't exactly the same, but we hired our token Republican at my company many years ago. And I was really, really upset before we hired this person that we did not have more conservative viewpoints in my company, right? Very diverse culturally, pretty diverse, not so good when gender-wise, something else that I really wanted to work on, but political stance was very, very, very important to me. So when we found this amazing candidate for our sales team, I told my team, she's coming on board and we cannot talk about politics anymore, at least not in the way that we've been accustomed to doing so, because we don't want to alienate her. We want to embrace her. We want to make sure that we hear her out, because her perspectives can really positively impact where we're going with our company and have more appeal. I happened to make the mistake of going on vacation when she started. And I told my team, whatever you do, don't talk about politics. They took her out to lunch and they started bashing Trump. And she never felt welcome from that point forward. She failed at her job in part because she was paraded as the conservative. And my people, and myself included, like it was my fault for not having been around when she started. We didn't protect her. And I was really sad about that. So I should have been better as a leader of ensuring that others in the leadership team knew better and cut conversations before they became uncomfortable for her. And I would say similar things. It really starts at the top. Leadership should model the values and culture for the rest of the organization. And if you can't do that, you shouldn't be a leader.
I'm going to also go in and do it the other way as another point here that was missed. It can't always be about the leader sometimes. It's got to be about the individual. So if you're in that situation, now you're the duck that you have to let it come down off your back. But however, this is where you go down to beneath the waterline, paddle fast. It's a line on a resume. If you get a chance to work with this amazing company, use it, fodder it, and get out of there in 12 to 18 months if you can last that long, and milk it for what it's worth to where you actually fit in the culture. And if you can leave earlier, but still keep it on your resume, go find that cultural fit.
I was just going to add too that there's this great graphic, which I'm sure you've seen, about exactly that. Like, you bring someone in, you kind of celebrate them, and then there's not the support there, and then they are sort of labeled as something or other, and then you see them leaving, which is sad that happens so much that there is like a meme about it. But it is true. And I think one of the things that we've had so much edits to the we had edits and discussions and everything, and then things couldn't fit on the takeaway. But just to make sure that, like, if you are bringing in those people, that you have the plan to support them, which is, saying what Leo said in a different way, because it is going to take more than just your standard onboarding to help that person be successful. And it comes back to the microaggressions that people are talking about. It comes back to these, values and culture, everything. But for all these reasons, it does take extra care. And I think that we try to ignore that when we are making those hires under the guise of, like, it's equal. I have to treat people equal, but that just doesn't work. You have to have inclusion too.
Yeah, and as I said, that was just a simple example of Republican versus Democrat, but at the end of the day, you're responsible for your own health and self-care. You can't expect to thrive in your career if you're the wrong cultural fit. You have to acknowledge that and do the self-care work, but still earn a paycheck and a living. Yeah. So it's your responsibility as well to find yourself a match somewhere else and be healthy.
I think too, just one last thing is that I think when you first start out your career, you have this idea that, like, if I just talk enough about it, like it will magically start working. But I think as we progress in our career, we know how these structures work, and we know how absolutely, it becomes a self-care issue, and nobody wants to go to a place every day, virtually or in person, and just have that on our backs. Whether we're trying to let it slide, it's still on our backs. So
Yeah.
just
So if you're,
some knowledge, or I guess some expertise. I think that like my view of the workplace and its possibilities has definitely changed as I've progressed in my career, and that's one thing that has changed a lot.
and we need to have these discussions so that good employees who are well trained from great education backgrounds have overcome and have drive stay. At the core, that's what this discussion is really for, whatever the label is of the week.
Jay, you're on mute, Jay.
I see it. I got it. Right. And with that, I want to again thank all of the speakers. I've been watching the chat comments here, responding to a few things. Thank you all very much. It's clear we had 4 very passionate, very experienced and expert speakers on this. I see that you've put your contact information in chat. I fully expect that you'll be hearing from some of our attendees. We had a peak crowd at one point of 150. We still have 40 on for the extended Q&A past the deadline of extended Q&A. So that's a positive sign that people really care about this topic. I hope we can count on all of you to contribute to a podcast or blog post in the future. The Austin Forum cares deeply about technology and society, and sometimes we go hardcore into the technology, but this is a really important societal topic and we want to continue to shine a light on it. You guys are the experts on it. We look forward to hearing from you and from our attendees how we can best continue to do that in the weeks and months and years ahead. Jessica, any final thoughts? Any final comments?
If this is your first time, we hope it's not your last. And we look forward to seeing all of you. Well, because I just like so many people were new people today. So we hope you keep coming to our events. If you're part of our community, we hope you keep coming. Please share about it on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Please join this community and help us and grow and connect, collaborate, and contribute.
Yeah, we can assure you that no 2 events are like. Everyone is a snowflake. The next one will be very different, and the one after that, very different from that. But every time you will get a chance to learn something new, see some new people and perspectives, and we hope you'll join us on September 1st. Thanks everybody very much.
September 8th, Jason, September 8th.
September 8th, Jessica's right, September 8th.
Thanks everybody.
Question I had to answer. I got a text, you all missed it, but it was Still Austin was the bourbon. So people were texting me about that. Still Austin.
Everybody wants to know, hashtag what is day drinking?
So have a great rest of your week, everybody.
Love you, Catherine. Bye. Thanks, guys.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thanks.